All right, your big industrial technology multimedia exam is just around the corner, right? Well, you've landed in the perfect spot. I know you've been hitting the books, so let's make sure all those key ideas are front and center in your mind, ready to go when you need them. So think of this as your essential, no fluff review. We're not just going to list a bunch of facts. Nope. We're going to connect the dots so you can walk into that exam and not just define stuff, but actually explain and apply it. That's the goal. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the multimedia toolkit, all the gear. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, creative techniques and principles. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at the professional landscape. You know, how this all works in the real world. All right, let's dive right in with the multimedia toolkit. Because before you can be a master creator, you got to know your tools, right? We're talking the absolute core hardware and software that makes everything tick. First on the list, and honestly, it's the heart and soul of any video project, the nonlinear video editor, or NLE. Now, if there's one thing you absolutely have to remember about it, it's this: the layered-based timeline. That's its superpower. And look, that's not just some nerdy technical term. Those layers, that's your creative playground. It's what lets you stack video clips, throw in some graphics, mix different audio tracks. It's literally the foundation of how all modern video editing works. Okay, here's a classic one they love to ask, all about how devices talk to each other. Think about a modern game controller. It does way more than just listen to your button mashes, right? So how would you classify it? Is it sending info, getting info back, or something else? You guessed it, it's both. It's an input and an output device. You press a button, that's your input. The controller rumbles in your hand, that's output. See, it's a two-way conversation, which makes it a hybrid device. Okay, let's switch gears to audio. Picture this. You're a podcaster and you've got enough cash for just one upgrade to make your sound go from amateur to pro. Where do you spend that money to get the absolute biggest bang for your buck? The answer, every single time, is a studio quality condenser microphone. And why is that? Well, because everything starts at the source. The mic is the very first point of capture. Garbage in, garbage out, right? A clean, high-quality signal going in is way, way more important than trying to fix a crummy recording later on. So what about 3D scanners? You might see a quote like this: "The key thing to understand is that they don't replace artists. They're a massive time saver. They capture real-world geometry, so you don't have to build everything from scratch." And that all boils down to one word: efficiency. Or maybe two: faster asset creation. Seriously, scanning a real-world object can give you a digital model in minutes instead of hours. It just completely speeds up the whole process of getting props into your scene. All right, we've got a handle on the tools. So let's move on to the really cool part, the creative techniques and principles. Because, having all the best gear is great, but knowing how to use it to create a mood or tell a story, that's what separates the pros. Let's talk lighting. A fundamental concept you need to know is the difference between hard and soft light. And it really all comes down to the shadows. Hard light from a small, direct source gives you those sharp, dramatic, high-contrast shadows. Soft light from a big, diffused source is much more flattering. It kind of wraps around your subject. Perfect for interviews where you want someone to look their best. Now, file types. This is a super important technical choice you'll have to make. If your number one goal is pure, unadulterated audio quality for professional editing, you have to go with WAV. It's uncompressed, which means it's lossless, no data gets thrown away. Now, MP3, that's for when you're ready to share your work. It's compressed, so the file is way smaller, but you do lose a little bit of that audio information in the process. Okay, let's jump over to web design for a sec. This is a super common question. When someone visits a website, what are the 3 key things that make for a really well-designed experience? And here's the magic trio. First, a clear site identity, so people know immediately who you are and what you're about. Second, intuitive navigation, so they can find what they're looking for without getting frustrated. And third, mobile responsiveness. It absolutely has to look and work great on any screen, from a tiny phone to a huge desktop. All right, for our last section, let's zoom out and look at the big picture, the professional landscape. Because making awesome multimedia isn't just about what you can do on a computer. It's about working with other people, managing projects, and understanding how it all fits into a business. And don't ever forget the impact of company culture. It's not just some fluffy HR term. It has a real effect on the bottom line. A great workplace that values its people, you're going to see higher productivity and people sticking around. A toxic culture? Well, that leads to real measurable costs, like more people calling in sick and having to constantly spend money retraining new hires. Okay, project's done. High five. But now what? How do you store it so it's safe and sound? Well, the best practice, the gold standard, is a two-step plan. Step 1, use cloud storage with permissions so your team can get to it. Step 2, always have a local backup on an external hard drive. That combination of easy access and rock-solid security is what you're aiming for. Whew! Okay, we just covered a ton of ground. So before we wrap up, let's do a quick, rapid-fire review to make sure the biggest ideas are locked in for your exam. So let's tie this all together. Just remember these key connections. Your tools, like a good mic, determine your quality. Your technique, like hard versus soft light, sets the mood. Your principles, clear, intuitive, responsive, guide the user's experience. A solid process, like a dual backup plan, ensures your work is safe. And finally, a great culture is what drives success in the professional world. And that's it. That's your core review. We've hit the tools, the techniques, and the professional side of things. So the only question left for you to think about as you start your career, you've got this. Now go ace that exam.